So,
Right.
Michelle, tell us about Little Giant.
Okay, Little Giant is a new cheese for us. This is the guy, brand new, couple years in the making. Our flagship cheese that we'll get to later is, of course, Humboldt Fog, and this cheese is built to be different than Humboldt Fog, and it took us a long time to figure out how to do that. Our cheeses tend to be really, our soft ripened cheeses tend to be, super citrusy and a little bit bold. And what we wanted to go for with Little Giant was something that was just a little bit more tame, I guess. It has a less aggressive rind so that it will, frankly, so that it will stay alive in transportation, even in a small format like this. But it is just the cutest little cheese, and single serve for somebody like me. But it's a great little cheese that ripens from the outside in, soft ripened, as we are experts of that at Cypress Grove. So you get a really lovely cream line depending on the age of your cheese, because it ripens from the outside in. And this cheese is much more kind of yeasty and buttery, if I can say buttery, rather than buttermilk that you're going to get with like a truffle chummer or a Humboldt Fog. And it's just a really nice, lovely, well-balanced cheese, a little bit milder than our traditional Humboldt Fog.
There's a lot of people that may not be comfortable understanding or eating the rind. So, Michelle, will you tell them a little bit about the rind?
Oh, so the rind is similar to a brie in that it is a white, soft, bloomy rind. It's the Penicillium candidum, and a little bit of geotrichum in there. The geotrichum makes it more yeasty. There's a little bit of geotrichum in Humboldt Fog, but a little bit more in this Little Giant. And I'm not a rind snob. You don't have to eat the rind, but in a cheese this size and this size, that's a lot of rind to leave behind. That's the best part for me. But if you don't like rind, you don't have to eat it. But I would say that you get a very different texture when you add the rind in. And also in this case, it's a nice thin rind, and you're not going to get a super bitter flavor that sometimes rinds can be more bitter. And you also normally get a little bit stronger flavor closer to the rind. And but this rind in particular has got a really nice toothsomeness to it without being too spongy. I know that's something that people don't like in a rind, I think. But I think if you are not a rind eater, and this is one that you could try, and it would be a nice entry point to try and see if you like rinds.
I think spongy is a good. How's that? Really nice. I like the rind myself.
Yeah. It reminds me when I was a kid, my mother used to say you should eat the crusts on the bread. That's the best bit. That's the tastiest bit. And
That's right.
It's a lovely cheese.
Yeah, and in this case, I don't know if you guys are tasting that, but it is just so nice and yeasty, just like the crust of the bread. It's just really, just a really lovely kind of toasty taste to it.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. So, Terrence, tell us about the Torpedo, and how do you come up with Torpedo?
The name Torpedo was actually, it's based off of a piece of equipment that we designed in-house. So some beers you can, in IPAs, generally you dry hop them. So you're actually adding hops towards the end of the fermentation process. Hops are added mainly to the boil as you're boiling the wort to create bitterness and extract the oils to get flavor and mouthfeel into a beer. But you can also add them, like I said, towards the end of fermentation or at the as it's chilling down as well. And what you're going to do is just enrich the hop character of that beer. And so Torpedo was a piece of equipment that we designed. In the first initial designs looked much like a torpedo, which is where the name kind of came from. It's an external unit. It's about a 300-gallon tank that we stuff with hops. We will run the beer through that bed of hops for anywhere between 24 to 48 hours to enrich the hop character in the final beer. And that's what this beer is about. We call it an extra IPA because it's kind of stuck a little bit between a traditional IPA and a double IPA because the alcohol level is 7.2. It's what I would refer to as a West Coast, classic West Coast IPA, which usually has an aggressive bitterness to it. This also has caramel malt in it, so it's got some sweetness, some maltiness to it, but it's generally all about the hops. And we use Citra and Crystal hops that impart a nice, again, kind of those grapefruit notes, fruity notes, as well as I get a lot of like cedar wood notes out of this beer.
You know, hop varieties, there are so many hop varieties, and just the same way that a winemaker talks about varietals and grape varietals, a brewer can do the same with hops, particularly if they're dry hopping, adding the aroma downstream. And you can get hops that are more spicy and some that are more citrus. And Citra tells you the name there, and then you get those that are more pine-like, or those that are other types of fruity character and so on. So by selecting different hops, you can get different intensities and different types of aroma taking place. You know, back where the original IPAs were, the storyline goes that they were designed really to allow beer to be shipped from England to India and survive a long sea passage, therefore very bitter and very alcoholic. But I don't think in those days they would have been quite so hoppy on the nose. I mean, this very much is a North American development, making the beer so hoppy on the nose. If you go back to my native England and try many of the beers there, you won't find quite that intensity of hop character. You know, I used to teach people about, you know, how these cask conditioned ales in England, it will be a handful of hops, a handful of hops. Here we're talking about a torpedo vessel packed with hops, and the beer over many hours is pumped through to really bring out that intense hop character. But to me, with this cheese, that the sweetness of this cheese and the bitterness of this beer, I mean, it really comes together beautifully.
Yeah, it really, you know, like one of the things, like, and I know there's probably some people that are listening in that kind of bitterness in beer is kind of keeps you away. With this cheese, it really cuts through the bitterness and kind of the sharpness of, because I feel like, and I'm not saying anything, like Torpedo is definitely a big and bold IPA, and pairing it with this cheese, it kind of softens it a little bit.
It really
Makes
it really is nice.
Yeah.
And very Moorish.
So I get this really lovely at the when I put the two together, I get this lovely kind of vanilla note. Do you guys, can anybody else detect that? Is that a thing? Did I make that up?
No, I don't think so. I think you're right.
No, it's really, I mean, that's why I love doing these things, you know, and even like beer dinners, and you know, you're discovering things about your beer, and then you're probably discovering things about your cheese too through these pairings, and it's really really fun, very educational. It's awesome. Again,
this is one of the pairings that that it doesn't necessarily look like it's going to work on paper, but everybody on this call came up with the same pair. Like, this is what's going to work. This is great.
Yeah, well, this is really good.
When you're pairing, typically when you have a bloomy rind now, that, you know, you definitely have the flavors of the rind, which are going to influence the flavors of the beer, and then you have the paste. So taking a bite of the paste and then taking a bite and then taking a sip of the beer and then doing it with the rind on there. The beautiful thing about this, that rind has that yeastiness to it, is that there's almost no difference In other words, it's not like there's a big difference if you eat the rind or you don't eat the rind. It's not going to be very noticeable. But what I get out of it is that the hoppiness kind of, I think the Citra hop, I think that piney area just kind of drops down just a little bit and the malt comes up. So I really taste a nice maltiness with this that I think really fills in. So you have a little bit of tang, but that tang is kind of absorbed into it and you get that malt. Then you get the butter, you get a little bit of the yeasty sweetness, which I think is where the vanilla, that yeasty sweetness is kind of like a little vanilla flavor coming across. And then the hops pop up in the back. You know, you really get them. I mean, it's not like you don't want them, but it's nice that they come back and you get a little bit of a nice balance at the end. Yeah.
Nice little check mark, right? Like,
exactly. You get it, I all bounce in. This is so nice.
Really good.
Really good.
Really good.
Yeah, that cheese is not very widely available, so I'm glad that you guys got to taste it. We just released it, and it is it's as I said, not very widely available yet. So glad that we had it for you, and that you guys enjoyed it, and that now we know what to pair it with.
And it's in a nice, cute little package.
Box.
It's beautiful.
That box is adorable.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, we have a bonus because we also agreed that this beer went really well with lamb chopper. So Michelle, tell us about lamb chopper and we'll do a quick little pairing with it.
Okay, so lamb chopper is a Gouda style sheep's milk cheese. It's the only cheese from Cypress Grove that is not goat's milk, and we just thought it would be a really nice pair with our Midnight Moon, which is a goat Gouda. We might as well have a sheep Gouda as well. And it is again, it's a super mild cheese, sheep's milk, so you get a nice. It's not lanolin-y like Manchego is. It's just a really lovely, mild, meltable sheep's milk Gouda that is just one of my favorites. It's a great cheese to cook with. And I don't know if the story behind the cheese is that Mary, we don't make this cheese in Arcata, because if we tried to make Gouda in Arcata, where we have all these beautiful soft bloomy rinds, we would kill one or the other cheeses. We're not sure which one would die, but we don't want to kill either one of them. So Mary partnered with somebody that she met at the Fancy Food Show years and years and decades ago, who said, you have to taste my mom's Goudas. And she went over to the booth and tasted the mom's Goudas and said, okay, let's work together to come up with some recipes. So we still have them made for us in Holland and then shipped over. And I love this cheese because it is so versatile and so just universal appeal, I think, right? Which makes it perfect for pairing.
Has a higher level of butterfat. And so we get this amazing sweet cream that's part of this with a little bit of nuttiness. So you get a kind of a sweet cream nut, almost like a caramelization. That's just fabulous. Terrence, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, so when we had all these samples, and I actually did this same pairing with a bunch of friends on Friday night, and I just fell in love with that cheese and kind of hoarded it myself and kind of just pulled it over to the corner. And I really, so Michelle, I was going to ask that, because I love like aged Goudas, and so a little bit of like, how long is this aged, and what happens to that? Because I love the outer layer of this cheese, and like that kind of, you get that crystalline, the mouth feel, the texture, and all that. Like, what's going on there?
So in this particular cheese, it's not really aged very long. It's only about three to 6 months. We find that we have aged it longer and found that we don't like it as well so far. Not saying we're not experimenting, trying to figure out how to make a longer aged lamb chopper. But the beauty of it is that you don't have to age this super long to get a lot of flavor out of it. In my piece, I don't get those tyrosine crystals, which is the crunchy bits that are the aged amino acids from milk. I definitely get that in the Midnight Moon more often, but that's what it is. If you're getting sort of crunchy bits, it's not like salt crystals. Some people think that it's like salt crystals, but I just call it, cheese crack, frankly.
Parents like it.
Yeah, I'm all about
It's in
that.
keeping with the theme of Humboldt.
Yep, right.
Yeah. It's the opposites attract thing. Sorry.
Yeah, it is. For some of these, of course, some of the pairings, it's more reinforcing, the two reinforcing one another. But in this one, it's the pairings that really make a wonderful matching.
Good. I like the fact two cheeses with this one. I like that.
Well, we
Why not?
definitely get a different pairing experience where before with the Little Giant, it kind of settled the hops down. Where here we bring them up, but I think that the nuttiness and the hoppiness, I think, kind of run a really nice parallel. The butter is the butter and malt kind of come together, so you have a butter malt, and then you have the hops and the nuttiness that kind of like sits on top of that, and it's a nice, I guess, a balancing act to get in there, because the beer doesn't overpower, the cheese doesn't overpower, but they definitely have distinct flavor characteristics that are just lovely, lovely.
Very good.
We're all going to just take a moment to enjoy
I
that.
know, right?
It's really good.
Yeah, exactly.